Welcome to the premiere show of Naked Art, inside the artist studio. I am your host, Debby Krim, and this is my co-host, Raphael Jaimes-Branger. Behind the camera is the third member of our team, Annie Smith.
We will be introducing you to artists from the SoWa Artists Guild. Every featured artist has a studio space at 450 Harrison Avenue, also known as SoWa Arts District.
SoWa stands for South of Washington Street. In each of our shows, we will be featuring 3 different artists, including all kinds of painters, sculptors, photographers, mixed media artists, and jewelers.
You will hear the artists tell their story and how they approach their work.
At the end of each show, we will be giving you the dates of events and happenings in the South End, as well as the website information for the SoWa Artists Guild.
For more information, visit our website at www.sowaartistsguild.com.
Or you can see us in person. You can come and visit us on the first Friday of every month, where we open to the public from 5 to 9 p.m. The event is called First Fridays Open Studios. Some of us, in addition to that, open on Sundays for SoWa Sundays.
We're also open in the spring and fall for open studios. Please visit our website for dates. So Debbie, who are we featuring today?
Well, we begin in Studio 318 with Steve Silver, an oil painter who's also the founder of the Guild. Next, we travel to the whimsical world of Brian Murphy, where he sculpts with wire.
And last, we will visit an oil painter with a very different style, Anna Davis.
First experience with art was when I was very young, approximately 4 years old. I started watching the Sunday morning TV shows where a person called John Nagy taught youngsters how to draw, and I got into it and I was fascinated by it, and I started drawing, and I found out that I could draw almost anything I looked at, so it came very naturally to me. And I got into business. I was in the computer business most of my professional life, and my art career turned into doodling while I was working. When I retired in 2001, I started painting full-time, and I took some courses at the MFA, and I started taking lessons from Tom Willett, who at the time was at the Fenway Studios, to just get into the fundamentals of painting and the technical aspects of painting. And I found that very helpful. And my whole life I've been very organized and not loosey-goosey. And the painting allows me to use the other side of my brain to really loosen up, to be expressive, to not follow any rules. So when I sit down in the morning to start painting, I always start with a dark background on the canvas. I pre-treat the canvas with either black or a burnt sienna or some kind of dark color. And then I just start putting paint on the canvas. I generally paint with palette knife, and I start layering paint on, and then I just sort of see where it goes. I may have a palette in mind, but generally not a specific composition. And as I start putting colors down, the composition sort of evolves out of it. And if I'm not happy where it's going, I just keep putting more paint on and putting more layers on, and to see where it goes. When I started painting, I did very representational, primarily landscapes, some figurative work, but over the years I've sort of transitioned into more what I call abstract, expressionistic type of painting. Now I don't use any reference material, whether live or photographic. I create all my paintings out of my head. When I start, I start using a certain color palette, and I just start applying areas of paint to the canvas. I really then just see how the paint is going on, and then decide what I want to turn this painting into, if anything, because I don't care that the colors are realistic. what you'd see in nature. I tend to use a lot of bright colors. I just want to get colors that work. My goal is to create a painting that is aesthetically pleasing to look at, as opposed to art that's shocking or has some other message, but isn't necessarily realistic, but something that a viewer can relate to. A lot of times I make what I think is an abstract painting with a landscape component, and I have people look at the painting and say, "I've been there." And I say, "Really?" And I think that's amazing that somebody can actually see a place they think they've been, and I've just painted a bunch of color blobs on a canvas. I like creating my own place, my own space, in an abstract way. And it may end up looking like something, but it's my something. And it's totally something that I've imagined and created. And that's really what inspires me. But when I finally feel like I'm done, I usually do see something in the painting that is my interpretation. Somebody else can look at it and interpret it totally different. What I see as sky, they may see as water. What I see as water, they may see as land. It really doesn't matter to me. What gives me the most enjoyment is seeing a visitor to the studio walk up to a painting and just stare at it and for a long period of time. And if they walk away for a few minutes, they come back to the same painting, and they clearly are relating to it and have an emotional attachment to it. When a person looks at a painting like that and has that kind of feeling towards it, that's the painting they should actually buy, take home, and live with, because they're going to look at it every day and get years and years and years, a lifetime of enjoyment out of it.
I first started working with wire about 8 years ago. I'm a full-time child therapist, and from doing work with children, and especially work with trauma in children, I started doing some expressive art therapy with them. Wire was just one of the mediums that we came up with, and we started off with doing magic wands, and it just developed into something much more advanced from there. Well, my typical day here is I come here from 10 in the morning till about 8 at night. I typically will work all through the day, both doing therapy and also working with my art, of course. And I also go and do workshops out in the community and do trainings in the community. Using art in institutional settings, I think, is something that didn't really occur to me all that much until somebody from various hospitals had come into my studio and asked me if I would be willing to do some work for various hospitals and community groups, so that kids could actually see art in waiting rooms while they're waiting, because they're very stressed out, they're very anxious, they're very worried, and to have something that distracts them, I think, is a very helpful thing. One particular story I remember was this little 8-year-old girl who was very constricted, very emotionally tight. And when she would make little wire sculptures, she'd make little wire dogs, and they'd be very tight wire dogs. And the point of the whole thing we were trying to do is make her have much more relaxed and looser loops of her wire, so that she wouldn't feel quite so needing to be so perfect and so controlled. She finished. She really looked like somebody who was much more at ease with herself and with doing the work itself. So I think that's kind of what we're trying to do, is try to help kids not only become more expressive in their presenting of the art projects, but also just the way that they do them, to be more relaxed and comfortable with it. Working with children helps me become more whimsical and light, and what they laugh at and joke at. Superheroes, cartoon characters, a lot of it comes from working with children in their sort of philosophy of the world and sort of the superhero concept. And part of what we try to do is to free up kids to be able to be more expressive, to be more unstuck from where they are. And I think that's how we are as adults too, is we often get stuck, and learning how to become more fluid, more flexible, more able to express yourself is a lifelong process. As an artist, you need to be able to have many different avenues in your life. You need to be able to be dancing, you need to be singing. There's something about hearing music as you're creating that stimulates creativity. And so I think in general, and I'm also a singer, and I'm also a dancer, So for me, I'm doing all those things at once as I'm creating. There's something about music which makes you, well, which we all know, makes you want to move and makes you want to express yourself through your body. And I think that comes out in the medium of the figures. So I do a lot of tango dancers, I do a lot of musicians playing, and there's something about the interaction between the musicians and the dancers which, as you put them on the display itself, it looks like they're interacting with each other in a way that if you keep them separate, you don't see that. So there's something about doing ensembles, which are sometimes very fun and interesting too. Typically my art is all one piece, and what I try to do is use that one piece, if often as possible not connected, so that, like I was saying earlier, is that I love to see the tensile energy, the movement in the wire. And then when you use one piece, you get much more movement energy than if you attach wire together. So sometimes it's an interesting puzzle. Your eyes can follow the wire and sort of see it all in one piece, and that's part of the enjoyment of the piece also, is to say, how did that all happen? And the titles for me are meant to be whimsical and light and to make people feel like they're sort of uplifted and to laugh. I think being an artist is very therapeutic, actually. It gives you a chance to express yourself in a medium that words just don't sometimes convey. And I think art is very transformative. Just creating the art changes you. And I think it changes people around you, so that the art itself is a form of therapy out into the world. For me, I want to be known out in the world, and I want to be like a Calder figure. I want to be somebody that people recognize my piece and say, ah, that's Brian Murphy. Traveling around the world and maybe being the south of France and having a whole big sabbatical where I could just be making wire art in a countryside farm somewhere. That'd be wonderful. You know, I think part of it is, for me, is not only to be well known and respected, but also to make connections with other people and to make a community of friends. I laugh a lot, I joke a lot. For me, life is very up and very upbeat, and so I like my art to reflect that. And I love to see people laugh at my work and to smile. And for me, that's a good piece, when people seem like they're enjoying it and smiling at it.
I would say that birth would be the first time that I realized that art was a pretty important part of my life. I don't ever remember a time when I wasn't drawing. I remember at nursery school creating portraits of the other little kids. I remember at 9 years old finding an easel in the trash can at the mall and digging it out and lugging it all the way home so that I put it, up in my room. I got my first paint set about that same time. My parents actually fought the idea of me being anything else but an artist. When I took drama lessons in school, they would say, "But what about your art?" If I pursued something that was any different than the path toward art, they kind of fought that. Some of my friends who had pursued fine art in other ways had struggled, weren't doing so well, but in advertising you were guaranteed a paycheck every week. I really believe that there would be a lot more creativity to it than there actually was. I was in advertising for 15 years and moved gradually up out of the production areas into management. I would say probably 15, 20 years in, there were a spate of layoffs in the early 2000s. So when I got caught up in that, tried to get a job again at the same management level that I was at, didn't have any luck, so decided it was time to pursue who I was rather than what corporations had me being. I've always been just somebody who just creates, just either rapidly. I know what my paintings are gonna look like when I'm finished. I've always been a painter. I think that throughout the years, I just simply forgot that I was an artist first, and tried to see myself in the corporate mold. My inspiration generally comes from nature, being able to look at all the different colors and textures, tree bark, leaves, grass. Those kind of things inspire me in my art. I like to see the depth, the contrast. I like to try and convey that then with paint on a, basically a flat surface and try to see if I can get that same kind of depth. I have an image in my head, and it could be of a place that I've been, of something I've seen, maybe even of a photograph that I've taken, that pops up into my head that I remember, and I need to put it on canvas. I've definitely done an abstract based on rust. I was, when I was working at the museum, had gone to the cafeteria in a downstairs restroom and washing my hands, and looked down at the faucet, which was a copper faucet, but the patina had started up the side and the rust was starting to kind of build, or some sort of coloration was coming up along the side of the faucet. And while most people would look at that and be semi-disgusted, I was fascinated by it. And the very next day, I brought my camera up to the museum and into the bathroom, and to the horror of the ladies that were in there with me, and took photographs of that rust, because I had to remember the way that the patterns and the color palette, that was the blues and greens and deep browns that were all a part of that image. And I took a lot of macro shots of it to see, and just looked at those, and then completed an abstract painting in honor of the rust. As I am painting, often I have absolutely no idea how much time has passed. When I'm really concentrating on what I'm doing, I have absolutely no idea of the outside world. So it's more of it engulfs me. I don't think, I don't plan. I pick up tint, I pick up color, and I place it where it needs to be placed, and basically I'm kind of very focused on the area that I'm painting. If it's a straight line or the tip of a boat, then it's just the tip that I'm thinking about. And oftentimes I'll stand back and look at the entire picture and just be amazed that I did all that. I really get lost in it. I think at this point in time, for me, the most important part of art would just be the catharsis of it, the freeing of that pent-up creative energy. Because my time is limited, it's nice for me to be able to come in and let loose and not have any idea of that the day has passed, not to understand the concept of time, because I've created something, or I'm just listening to music and just painting and just putting paint on the canvas. That catharsis is the most important part to me. I tend to lose myself in the details of paintings and illustrations and drawings, and at the end, when I step back and look at it, even if I find something years or months later, I look at it and say, oh, I did that. That's always, it always amazes me that I was able to create something that I liked, and I think that that's really personally all that matters. I would love for other people to love it and to like it as much as I do, but when I'm finished and I've got something that I like, I'm quite satisfied at that point.
Well, this wraps up this episode of Naked Art Inside the Artist Studio.
We hope you enjoyed having the opportunity to get to learn a little bit more about the artists at 450 Harrison.
So please come and meet the artists on the first Fridays of each month at 450 Harrison Avenue in Boston's South End.
Hope to see you there.